Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically Canada, and even more specifically in hockey, maybe the other way around. I'm your co-host Nick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitNick. And I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host
Grant on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. We're licking our wounds a little bit this week, Mick. It's been a fun football season, but it's all in the rearview mirror now. I can't help but think what a long, dreadful 7 months this is going to be until we get meaningful football again.
Yeah, I mean, as a casual sports viewer who doesn't make that much money off, it is kind of nice. Like, the burden of football season on me is a full-time commitment, right? Like, my Sundays are taken up, my Mondays, Thursday nights. There's a lot of planning, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure that I put on myself. Like, fantasy football destroys my self-esteem for 4 months. So, I miss it, but I don't hate that it's gone for the next little while. And, like, Sundays roll around, and I'm like, I can do stuff again. This is exciting. Like, tomorrow, I might go out somewhere and, like, have an ice cream cone.
Damn, that's a bold play in minus 20 weather.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I'm glad your self-respect is back. I am now going to need an excuse to drink on, Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. And until baseball season, I don't know where it's coming from. There's only so many wing nights you can rationalize in a week. Like, where does the midweek the weeknight drinking, where does it come from now?
Yeah, I don't know. You're going to have to be creative on that one. Retro movie drinking games?
Oh, maybe that's an interesting topic for discussion. Like, because in university, we used to look for excuses to drink on Sunday. That was our biggest win. Chinese New Year, always pink drink night, annual tradition. Like, if we had a reason to drink on a Sunday, we would 100% take it. It feels like the excuses are getting harder and harder to come by as a grown-up, because anything that you say, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to have some beers, go out, it's kind of like...
You class it up. You change from the beer to the red wine. You make a nice Sunday night dinner. Then you get sloshed on a bottle of red wine. It's not going to last till next week. There's no preservatives because we bought this organic one. Better drink the whole bottle. Glug, glug, glug.
Well, that's smart. Red wine gives me the worst hangovers, though. But I like where you're going with that.
It puts the fear of God in you for the week a little bit, too, right? Like, you wake up on Monday and you're like, I'm going to be different this week.
You look in the mirror with your red stained teeth, you're like, this is going to be an okay week, man.
It's all behind us. So, with that, like Grant alluded to, we did do a prop show last week in order for the Super Bowl. So I have the prop sheet up on the board. I got 2 picks right. Look at that. Over 50.5 points. Sweet bet to have, especially with a high-scoring game like that. As well as either team will score in the last 3.5 minutes. So, wow, I got a whole $33. Which, I mean, I guess out of $100, like a 33% return, it's not the worst thing in the world.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I'm going to be glass half empty guy here. It's more like a $67 loss than a $33 win.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Grant, on the other hand, was that 6? First touchdown, Jalen Hurts. All right. What else we got? Last play would be a quarterback kneel. I mean, kind of. I wouldn't call it a Hail Mary. It was definitely, I think Jalen Hurts ended up on the turf and no one touched him, so maybe.
Throwing the ball is hard, man.
I don't know if we can give him that one. Pacheco over rushing yards, that was an easy one. Gainwell over rushing yards. At some point, I think he just took over the backfield, so great call on that one. Defensive special teams touchdown, yes sir. And then 1,000 plus 1,000 Gatorade for purple. And that leaves Grant with like $300. What's that up on the season? Like $1,100.
Yeah, about that.
Great, sweet. So if you're following along, we do have a gambling segment later on in our show. Maybe listen to Grant, not so much me. I mean, I'm not doing horrendous. I'm at 230, so.
Yeah, you're doing all right. Especially, maybe I think you've hit a few speed bumps towards the start of the year, but You were cruising into the halfway point or into the Christmas break.
Yeah, no. Grant is doing exceptional. I am doing okay, right? Like, if you're listening to me, you're definitely like, oh, I'm definitely jumping on the wrong course in that race. But we'll close that Super Bowl prop show. Super Bowl was good overall.
Entertaining. I know that it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. There's plays that you're going to look at and say officiating was bad. Maybe it's not unique to the Super Bowl. Everybody's always going to complain about referees, but I'm going to just dangle this. We have an exciting officiating anecdote category, some talking point at some point in this podcast. So you're going to have to tune in, or you're going to have to listen to all 60 minutes, 69 minutes if we have a few extra things to talk about, to figure out exactly where that leads you.
Interesting. I've actually heard that in other sports where I think someone was talking about the Orlando Magic. While I was listening to an Orlando Magic podcast, that's what I do on my time. Don't judge me. But they said that they have the youngest officials on average in the NBA. So any rookie officials, for some reason, they put them on Orlando Magic games because who cares about the Orlando Magic? And if some mistakes are made, and some more diehard fans have looked into the numbers, and it's potentially affected their win-losses by like 3 or 4, just due to missed calls against them, calls that shouldn't be called, right? So I think as a franchise matures and grows, especially with like the younger kids that play now for the Magic, that will probably change. But it's, I don't know, it's always one of those things you need to like, there's so much information, there's so much intangibles you have to kind of gather when you're looking at betting on sports, being fans of sports, right? Just kind of one of those other, speaking of officials, right?
Yeah. I have to know, though, what is the porn equivalent of listening to an Orlando Magic podcast? Because it's got to be something degrading. Like, is it pegging? Is pegging the equivalent of Orlando Magic podcast?
Well, pegging could be kind of exciting. Like, I was thinking it was going to be like watching a man jerk off while he watches porn. Like an over the shoulder, so you get kind of like his dick, but then also like a screen. So it's like, it could kind of get you there, but like there's a lot of obstacles you have to overcome to enjoy yourself. So
you discovered a category that I didn't know existed. Yeah. And then I don't know where the rabbit hole ends. I don't know if it's a man watching a man watching a man.
That's it. That is like the step back of the looking glass, and all of a sudden it like pans back, and it's just you've been watching the screen of a man who's been watching it the whole time.
And the M. Night Shyamalan turn, at the end it's just a picture of you. You've been watching yourself jerk off the entire time.
Holy shit.
Boom. Mind exploded.
Wow. Orlando Magic basketball is amazing.
We're not here to talk about Orlando Magic basketball. We are here to talk about Canadian NHL teams, which is only slightly less degrading.
Yeah, pretty much. So we did take a little bit of a break. Obviously Super Bowl, then there was All-Star Weekend. So it's been a hot second since we kind of got into it. What we're going to do is, like always, we're going to roll up the standings here. I'm going to go to overall, scroll to the bottom, and we're going to work way up and just talk about what's happening, who's where, and, I wrecked the surprise. I went up too high. Oh, no, there's 2 of them. All right, so from the bottom, at 28th from the top, Vancouver Canucks. Great, cool. Did we talk about the Bo Horvat trade?
No, actually, that came kind of across my timeline, social media timeline. I was like, and a few days later, I think I found out on he was trading on a Monday, and then I didn't come across it until the Saturday. I was like, Bo Horvat isn't a Vancouver Canuck anymore? What the fuck happened? But did you hear what Lou Lamoriello had to say after the trade?
That his contract that he signed, when they asked him the details and specifics, he said, I'm not sure, but I know it's too much money, and it's for too long. So.
If that's not a fucking red stamp on the work that I've done, I don't know what is. My God.
Yeah, no, brutal. Decent return, right? They got Bellevue. He's a guy that can play in the NHL. That's fine, right? For a team like the Canucks that are rebuilding, you need guys that can play. I think they got a first-round pick out of the deal. Horvat went and signed for some term. Not it's an extra piece, right? To play with Matthew Barzal, so hopefully it kind of helps one of those teams. I think it's a good fit for both squads, right?
Yeah, and Horvat trade notwithstanding, we got to talk about Rick Tocchet coming in and doing worse than Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah, and that's during the whole saga. Vancouver, like, what was your expectations this season? What were you hoping to get, right? You sucked. You were terrible under Travis Green. Absolutely horrendous. Boudreau actually gave you a bit of a boost, but then you fell back down to earth. Maybe your team's just not very good, right? Like, you just don't have the dogs. You don't have the pieces. Some of your young guys just aren't hitting the highs that you thought they would, and you're not building around them, right, successfully. And you're not creating a competent hockey team. And your organization looks like it's run like horseshit, so then guys don't want to stick around, and right? I never understood why the Boudreau, like why the Tocchet's signing was going to be better for them. Like, what was wrong with Boudreau?
Yeah, so I tweeted this out a few weeks ago, so you may have seen it right when it happened. Maybe not exactly when it happened, or around when they were doing the coaching change. And everybody was talking about how, this was going to change things. And really, it's analogous to the Oilers when they struggled. I'm not saying that the Vancouver Canucks have a stable of first-round picks that they failed to win with, but I'm saying that it's comparable in the sense that you have elite talent, you've acquired elite talent, and the Oilers didn't succeed until they traded away Taylor Hall, who was the locker room cancer, and then guess what happened? Everything improved. I don't think Bo Horvat was the locker room cancer. I don't know who it is, but I can see that whoever it is that's causing this, just locker room to fester is preventing the team from winning. And I don't know if it's Bozer, I don't know if it's Hughes, I don't know if it's a role player that nobody cares about, but until they get rid of them, it's nothing good is going to happen.
There's something else in the system, right? Because Quinn Hughes had a couple, weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, where he had some comment where he came out and said, I wish, they were talking about one of the players that was hurt. I don't care. I'm not going to remember the name. But apparently he had another surgery and his season was now done, and Quinn Hughes came out and said personally he wishes the organization handled things better, right? He thought the way the organization handled the situation wasn't up to his kind of standards and what he thought a professional hockey team was. So I think there's something that stinks in the arena, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's coming from upper management, right, or even ownership at this point. And it's just, this franchise has needed a harder reset than it got since basically the Sedins were done. And I think JT Miller was a great Band-Aid. He was one of the best Band-Aids I've ever seen. It was Dora the Explorer. It was scratch and sniff. He put 3 glasses on, had layers. It was an amazing Band-Aid. But at the same time, it didn't fix the problem, right? It just kind of legged it along. And I think now we're seeing ultimately this franchise just, I don't know, needs a good exorcism.
That's it, 100% it. They need an exorcism. Maybe it's locker room, maybe it's management, but it's time to just blow it all up. It's not working. It's not going to work.
Or you're going to struggle, right? Or chill in the bottom for a bit. That's the other option. Teams are allowed to just find players suck for a while, right? As you kind of develop and get more assets and grow and, hit the draft picks. And it'll come. It's just not there right now. And may not be. Scrolling up, though, from the Vancouver Canucks, we spent far too. Oh, okay, they did trade Bo Horvat. That's a significant piece. Then there's Arizona, who beat Tampa Bay in a shootout the other night. A 1-0 shootout. So Tampa Bay,
I'm gonna just
the best ever. They went to a shootout with Arizona, and no one talks about that. And I was like, God damn it! I wish people cared more about hockey.
So I'm going to give you some props here because in an earlier in a podcast earlier this season, you had said the Arizona Coyotes had beat Toronto, they'd beaten Boston, they'd beaten all these teams at home, and then on that night, Arizona was plus 400, plus 350, something like that, and I immediately went back to that moment where Mick said Arizona is giant killers at home, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna bet on Arizona tonight. 1-0 in a shootout, I think it was.
Yep.
Boom.
Nice. Awesome. That's solid. I'm glad that that worked out for you. Yeah, like they step up, and the professional hockey, like losing to Chicago, Columbus, Anaheim, isn't the mark that your team sucks and you won't succeed. They're professional hockey players, right? Like everyone's a professional hockey player. There's some nights guys just step up other than right. You see it across the board. That lull of been like, we're playing the Giants this weekend. Giants suck, and then the Giants beat you 50-0. And you're like, what happened? Like, those guys were unbelievable out there today, right? Like they just hit these other levels.
And I will say this, Tampa was in a bad spot. I think it was Colorado the night before, second night of a back-to-back. I should have bet it as a shootout and at Coyotes winning for extra money, but anyways, your point is valid. These players are paid to compete on a nightly basis, and sometimes they just outcompete the other team.
And like my best buddy Gary Bettman said, hockey teams don't tank. And I think more specifically, hockey players don't tank. Like, even if you call it like, hey, we're going to throw one tonight, they're like, no, we're not. Well, I'm going to fucking go win this game. See you, coach, right? On the 26th from the bottom, or from the top, I guess, not from the bottom. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. From the top, we have, with their minus 50 goal differential on the season, the Montreal Canadiens.
I don't have a whole bunch to say about Montreal these days. I miss Carey Price. That counts for something, but, I mean, you know what they did make headlines for this week? They absolutely annihilated the Chicago Blackhawks at home.
Yep.
And at one point, they did a video tribute to Max Domi, who spent a couple of years, I think it was 2 seasons with the organization. And Max Domi didn't even look at the board. And so after the game, he was asked about it. He's like, why weren't you watching your video tribute that we put so much effort into? He's like, I didn't know you guys were doing me a video tribute. I didn't catch it until the end. So that was the only noteworthy anecdote from the Montreal Canadiens last couple weeks that I could think of.
Yeah, they're not doing a lot either. I might hate the Montreal Canadiens, but I do respect them as an organization. I think they kind of run a clean ship, right? And they seem like they have their priorities in order. They're just rebuilding, right? Like, they're boring. Are they going to beat the Leafs tonight? Probably, right? Like, that's just the inevitability. Like, they're going to beat the Leafs for some reason and then go on like a 5-game losing streak. I can't really explain it more than that, but again, they're passionate guys, they're a passionate fan base, they're a passionate organization, and they're rebuilding right now. So take that with a grain of salt, right?
Or take it with all the salt if it comes up in Bettor Advice in a few segments.
Ooh, all of the salt. All right, so from there, who are we going to see? Philadelphia, St. Louis, and Ottawa, 23rd. How are you so terrible?
If that's a rhetorical question, I hope it's a rhetorical question because I don't have the answer. I don't know what the hell's going on in Ottawa, but they haven't built any momentum off of last year's successes. They look kind of like they have compete, but they don't look good, if that makes any sense, at least from what I've seen.
I mean, they're a very one-dimensional team from a forwards point of view. They've got 6 forwards out there on the ice that, damn, you want to set your clock to, man, that's great. But 6 out of 25 guys doesn't quite get you there, right? And I think we've seen that. They did, however, I think I lost money when they beat the Flames the other night. One of their goalies was hurt. So rookie goalie, 0 starts, going into Calgary. I was like, man, easy win for the Flames. No, Ottawa won like 5-2, and I was like, oh, cool, great. That's why I don't randomly just bet on hockey teams during the week without doing research. Yay.
So this is the Arizona Coyotes tidbit that I will leave you with moving forward that you can put in your back pocket. For some reason, goalies in their first start always play well. It's just this for some reason, I don't know if the universe is like, here, you made it, here's a win in your first game. They always play well in their first start. Then things generally come unglued afterwards. So
yeah, and I wonder if it is just like a reps thing. Right, you just kind of throw literally the puck at the goalie in the first game to see what happens, because like you're not sure, and then once you identify where his weaknesses is, that's when guys start focusing more, right? And like, oh, go glove side under the glove, literally can't stop that shot, and then the goalie's career is just over. Like once they kind of get that one detail, and they get the scouting report on them, it's game over. So in hindsight, I realized it was a stupid bet. But at the time, I was like, man, this is great. I'm in Shoppers Drug Mart. I'm waiting to buy some toothpaste. What else am I doing?
Well, one of those lessons you learn and move on from, maybe. Don't ever, ever, ever discount the Ottawa Senators. Never.
Especially with that hot, fresh goalie, because like they can only be 23rd for so long. Like there's only they can only move up. Can they move up? What happens if they move up? No, not much. Let's see, Nashville, Buffalo.
It's probably a nice segue into the Calgary Flames, I would assume.
Buffalo. What a miserable franchise that is. Calgary, look at that, 19th. Cool. Yeah, Calgary.
You,
I don't want to just sit here all podcast and tell you how smart I am. I know yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, there was a report from Alan Walsh, I believe is the agent, that represents Huberdeau, who had some cryptic tweet about insanity is the definition of doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results, and it creates negative. There was something about like a negative culture or negative cultures beget negative players, in reference to how Huberdeau has just played this year in Calgary. So apparently there's some ire thrown toward the Daryl Sutters of the world and just kind of the environment and culture that they have in Calgary right now. And maybe his age, and maybe Mr. Huberdeau was not as happy as everyone assumed he'd be playing for the Flames. Who saw that coming?
well, I'll tell you who saw it coming. Mick saw it coming. But I'm not going to sit here and defend Alan Walsh because he's a cunt. And he doesn't deserve any kind words.
I mean, big disclaimer. Huberdeau came out and said, he's like, I have no idea why Alan Walsh said that. He's like, that's not coming from me. So there's a chance he's just being a douchebag. So.
Yeah, Alan Walsh is a douchebag. But as much as I'd love to go on a rant about what a terrible human being he is, we can talk about how much worse the Calgary Flames are on the ice because they have one win over the last 4 games, and they have looked bad throughout. I don't know how to die. I'm not watching enough Calgary Flames games to diagnose the problem, but as a local Calgarian, I am happy to say that ticket prices are plummeting, Mick, and we might be able to go have some pocket dogs and beers for real cheap, real quick.
Cool. Yeah, that's really my only interest in the Flames at this point is if they're so terrible, I can go for like $40 on a Thursday night or something, go watch some hockey. Other than that, like,
I think even cheaper than that. Let me just see here.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
There are some sad parts. I don't think, whereas like I would make fun of Vancouver for having like bad assets, right? Like if you were to look at them overall, I'd be like, there are some pieces in Calgary that I really enjoy, right? And I just don't understand why they've fallen off. Not to tip my hat, I think I have them, and I picked up like an Elias Lindholm. I think that guy's very talented. I think what he was doing in the playoffs last year, some of the play he had just in their system, playing with Tkachuk, he seemed like a top-notch player, like one of those kind of guys that you're like, I would love to have an Elias Lindholm on my team. I think that guy's a good talent. This year, just kind of pooping the bed, not doing much. So, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to say, there's some, like, noteworthy opponents coming up. So, Saturday, they're playing, obviously, tonight. There's a Monday afternoon game because it's family day.
Yeah.
And what better way to celebrate family than getting drunk at a Flames game? That's even too much. I knew it was going to be more because it was a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, they have Bruins, Maple Leafs. There's a Saturday night game, which tend to go a little higher. You know what? Let's take a look at a Friday night game in against the Minnesota Wild. 2 tickets. Yeah, you're right. $40.
Nice. Yeah, solid. I mean, that's probably how much it should cost to go watch a sporting event.
There's just like, man, they have nothing but Thursday, like primetime games. Here's a Tuesday night game, but it's not till the end of March. I'm not even going to be here. But let's see what the Kings versus Flames are. There we go. $29.
Nice. Yeah, that's better. Calgary something. Oh, here's a. Let's say for some reason this is kind of a segue to our. No, probably not our next two. So I'm guessing they're a little bit higher in the sense. Would you straight up? Let's say you wanted a number 3 center. So you're like, you know what's sick right now? Center depth. Would you straight up trade Tyson Barrie for Nazem Kadri?
Tyson. Oh man, I don't think very highly of Nazem Kadri. And knowing what the Oilers need, I would say 100% no.
So
We don't need to.
you think Tyson Barrie is a better asset than Nazem Kadri? So if you were to trade, say, Nazem Kadri for Barrie, the Barrie return is better.
The Flames would get more from Barrie than the Oilers would get from
So
Kadri.
then also like you might have if like you got back Alexander Kerfoot, who played like up and down your lineup over a couple years for a relatively cheap. That'd be like a much better trade.
Maybe.
Mm.
Hypothetically, Kerfoot. Uh, I just I don't think the Oilers need either player, to be honest. Like those are areas of weakness. But I'd
Well, no,
like to
no,
see where this
but
is going.
you're getting uh, Barry and I'm just trying to pump up Kyle Dubas's tires. I kind of feel like that Nazem Kadri trade is still a pretty good trade, right? One
Like
time
from
he
the
went
Leafs perspective, a
outside
few
of one
years
time he
ago.
went supernova for like the Avalanche last year and won them a cup. Nazem Kadri kind of sucks at hockey, so
Oh. Well, this is one thing. On the topic of Nazem Kadri, this is not a natural segue, but he absolutely got destroyed at
mm-hmm.
the when they were playing the Rangers a couple weeks ago. Did you see that game
Yeah.
where Jacob Trouba basically just took
Oh
off everybody's head?
yeah, it was great.
I got so much joy out of that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I have nothing against Nazem. I just more of like the people that I see randomly throwing shade, like, oh, you should never have traded that guy, and I'm like, should they have? I don't know. He's not very good, so
All right, I connected the dots finally. I finally got there.
I just wanted you to say nice things to me, Grant. It's going up from Calgary because unless we're going to a game for $30, I don't care about you. Number 12, they were next. I would have thought they were higher. I feel like the Oilers had a really nice run the last 2 weeks. Did they just were this that low in the standings, or is it just a little more up and down?
They've cooled off over the last couple of games. I think they lost overtime games to the Wings and Rangers recently, but you were right. They were flying high. I think they were like 8-1-1 at one point over a 10-game stretch. Like they were playing really good hockey. Stuart Skinner pooped himself a little bit towards the end of the road trip, and then they've gotten home and they just haven't broken out of their funk. Their offense is working fine, but goaltending's been an issue. It's going to be an issue. Stuart Skinner's a rookie goaltender. Soup is, well, he's been a better goalie of late,
He has
but he hasn't been
moments.
the difference maker that they wanted him to be.
Yeah, was it last Saturday? Oilers and Senators. I watched a little bit of the second period of that game. Whew, boy, that was a bit of a slugfest. I think it was like 2-1, and then ended up walking away like 4-5 or something like that. Out of like the second, it was a high-paced, high offense, great. And anytime Edmonton just needed a stop, they would let in a soft goal. So seems like yeah, great, awesome.
Yeah, their goaltending, or sorry, their save percentage has taken a hit recently. I still like all the chatter that has been going on around this team since the offseason is like, well, what trades are they gonna make?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to get the impression that there's just no trade to be had. I don't even. Did you hear about the Eric Carlson offer?
Yeah, something like 3 firsts they wanted. I don't know if there was more in the deal, like if they wanted picks and players and prospects. I know there's 4 future 3rds. Holland said that they didn't want to give up. They just couldn't leverage the future for Carlson at this time.
So yeah, it was the offer. Apparently, there was an offer made. It was Evan Bouchard,
Okay.
um, Xavier Bourgault, who is one of their top-rated prospects, a first-round pick, Tyson Barrie, and then one other contract to make the numbers work. I was like, that's a king's ransom for a guy who gets paid $11 million, $11.5 million, and other than this year, hasn't looked good recently.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't know exactly. I couldn't tell you Carlson's age. I'm guessing 32. So he's on the wrong side of 30. He's had a history with injuries. He makes a lot of money. He's got a lot of perm, and we don't know how much he likes to play hockey outside of this year. Hasn't looked great. I would be very cautious about selling the farm, essentially, for Erik Karlsson at this point, right? Like, there might be a deal to be had. The deal you just said, like, Barry, Bouchard, and a first, I don't
And
need it.
prospect. Like, that's fucking... But that's... I think maybe where I'm encountering issues with this is the longevity of the contract and where this team's going to be with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in a couple of years. Like, Connor McDavid's getting a fucking pay raise, and Leon Draisaitl's arguably getting an even bigger pay raise.
Because Karlsson's $11.5 million?
11.5.
So he's the highest. So you'd have like two of the highest paid contracts. Just get Panarin in the deal, and you got like the three highest contracts in the league. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So I know McDavid's. I think he's 12.5. I think Draisaitl was like 8.5, 9, and then Karlsson's 11.5. So there alone is basically almost $40 million. It's crazy. Like, how do you rationalize that?
You could, but I don't think for that group of players, right? Like Draisaitl, McDavid, of course, still worth it. The longevity thing would be the scariest thing. Like, as opposed to like the here and now, awesome, great. He's leading the league in 5-on-5 points this year. That's incredible. That is a big glaring need that the Oilers have, right? They're very special teams oriented. If you can get some even strength goals, oh boy, you're flying. But yeah, next year, the year after that, 3 years down the line, also when that first round pick you gave up is worth, a top 10 pick, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that just isn't going to work out. So I would be a bit more hesitant.
You're giving up on Evan Bouchard, who's a top round pick, and granted his development has been slower than most people have hoped for, but he's looking good more recently. And now to just say, here, we're trading this, likely a top four guy for at least 10 years to come, for Erik Karlsson, who might be a top 4 guy for maybe next year.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't make it work. It doesn't make sense to me.
High end, like first round defenseman. Like, if we're just like off the top of my head, you've got like your Rasmus Sandins, your Lindgrens, your I had another one, like Mikhail Sergachevs. Those are all first round picks. I think Bouchard could probably hit those levels, and that's kind of like what you would expect from a first round pick. A little bit cheaper. He's going to play some bit of a role in the team. I think Bouchard could do that. Versus a little more offense. But do the Oilers really need more offense?
And this was, I think they do need a puck-moving defenseman, but I don't think Karlsson's the guy. And I don't know where that leaves them. I'm assuming there's a poor man's Karlsson out there. Mm-hmm. I've talked about Joel Edmondson. He's not really puck-moving, but he's a solid defender. There's that Gavrikov guy they're looking in Columbus, which I think would be great. If this guy is, and I haven't seen a single Columbus Blue Jackets game this season, but if he is, and maybe I should do a dive on him before I open my yapper, but if he's as good as they're saying he is, and he is a defender who moves the puck, and he's available at $3 million, and he's going to cost you a third-round pick or a second-round pick, even a prospect, like an A-plus or an A prospect, I would much rather do that deal than mortgaging more of the future for an aging defenseman who's having an anomaly year.
You know what? If you're getting a cheap-ish defenseman with term, give up a first even, right? Like, if you're getting a top 4 defenseman and you get some term on it and it's cheap and he works in your system, like, I don't hate giving up first-round picks for those things, right? Like, if they make sense and you're, like, not just looking at the on-ice product, but you're also looking at the longevity and how is he going to fit into our cap structure going forward, like, I wouldn't be against that. At the moment, it might be shocking, but you should have got more. But sometimes, like, the other intangibles are worth more as well, right? So,
and coming from an Oilers fan, I'm tired of getting fleeced in trades. That has been our MO for the last, 15 years. Like, I can't remember the last time where I was like, yeah, we won a trade and we're better because of it. And this would be another example of us losing a trade and then people standing on their soapbox and saying, look how good we got. Like, the last thing I need is fucking Oilers fans talking about how unstoppable this team is going to be, them to lose in the first round, and then be stuck with Karlsson for the next, unless the only possible silver lining I could think of is that Erik Karlsson's ankle falls off again, and then we have an $11.5 million cap cushion until 2028. Like, that would be the only silver lining. If they're going to Nancy Kerrigan the guy, perfect. Make the trade. We will use that cushion and get better. But if the plan is to have this guy play for the next 5 years, no, get over yourselves.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
That is a scary prospect. I kind of feel like the Oilers did win the Nail Yakupov trade. I'm not sure exactly the specifics on it. I believe he was moved to St. Louis. And I feel like that was a good deal. Like, maybe got like a second or something, or third in return. That was a pretty good deal. Because Yakupov literally did nothing. You just basically got a free whatever. Whatever you got in that deal was better. So there you go. There's one trade the Oilers have won.
Was it Patty Maroon? Did we get Patrick Maroon in that deal? Let me just see.
Maroon in a pick? So that's the case. Like,
all right, we're going from that's half chub material. Let's see here. In exchange for nope, nothing. It was Zach Picoro. I'm on the Wikipedia page, and he's showing his red, so he doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page, and a conditional third-round pick.
Ah, third-round pick. See? That's something.
Yeah, let's see. That would have been 2017. Let's see who that pick turned out to be.
Come on, Leon Draisaitl. Come on, Leon Draisaitl.
2017. Oh, my God. No, I'm going to fuck this all up now. I'm going to have to kill some time here, but I will get to the bottom of the answer.
All right. Well, Grant is maybe playing out of that. Okay, but Oilers trending in the right direction. I'll be interested to see. They're definitely a team to keep an eye on, right? Some of the bigger movers and shakers, right? We've seen Tarasenko go to the Rangers. The Maple Leafs just made a trade yesterday that we'll get to at some point. Those are kind of like the big pieces on the chessboard, right? Outside of maybe the LA Kings. I don't know if Vegas can do anything, but they seem like they're always kind of frisky, right? I'm just looking, maybe the Kraken, maybe Colorado. There are some kind of big movers to make, but I don't know, for the Patrick Kanes, the Carlsons of the world. As an Oilers fan, I would be spending a lot of time on rumors and like Reddit fan theories and stuff like that. It sounds like a good time. Speaking of
Dmitry Samorukov, but Stuart Skinner was also a third-round pick that year. So, anyways, that's what it ended up to be. But Dmitry Samorukov, I guarantee you, is less of a liability than Yakupov.
Oh yeah, just getting that guy out of town so you don't have to think about him anymore. Big win for the Oilers right there. Ah, that first overall pick. Yeah, we trade them for nothing. What of it?
Zach Pocaro doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page. Sorry, Zach. Maybe you're one of our listeners, and I'm sorry if your self-esteem is being affected. But
sorry, keep your head up. You'll be right. So from the Edmonton Oilers, you move to the torrential Seattle Kraken. Sure, why not? The LA Kings. I don't understand hockey sometimes. Why are you there? And then we get to the team that I don't understand at all. With 69 points on the year, nice. Winnipeg Jets.
Winnipeg. You got any hot takes on the Winnipeg Jets?
No, other than I believe on our prop show, I definitely dropped the nugget of, speaking of Erik Karlsson, wouldn't Erik Karlsson, got lots of term left, he has to play in Winnipeg. He can't not be there. What if Erik Karlsson ended up, maybe Josh Morrissey on the blue line in Winnipeg? Might be a interesting turn of events. Do they have the pieces to move them? They probably have prospects and, assets to move without kind of like emptying the war chest or something like that. So outside of the Winnipeg Jets maybe making a bigger splash at the deadline, which I know they won't because Kevin Cheveldayoff does not believe in trading ever. That's it. Other than that, I couldn't tell you anything about the Jets.
Yeah, I actually haven't been paying attention to them at all recently. I don't know what the record is. I don't know how good they've looked, so I'm okay taking a pass on the Jets.
I know they're ninth, and I know I had one of the last gambling advice. I had everything tied into the Jets beating the Flyers. So the Flyers stomped them 4-0, and they looked absolutely pathetic. I was the only game on Hockey Night in Canada that night. I sat and watched it. I was disappointed with what I saw with the on-ice product. So obviously that was an anomaly. That wasn't the standard for what they've set this year. But, man, when they look bad, they look really, really, really bad. So I hope when they look good, they look really, really good to offset that. Otherwise...
That's the only way that they could be ninth. But now that I think about it, so, yeah, what triggered this thought was you saying They are ninth in the standings. I was like, I never would have guessed Winnipeg to finish ninth in the standings. No, that's not to say that they're going to, but. And then I started thinking.
All year though, like it's not like they just got there. Like they have been ninth all year. It's just a level of consistency of play, a bit more not one dimensional, right? Where I mentioned the Ottawa Senators in my mind are very one dimensional. They've got six forwards out on the ice. Boy, they blow your world. But like it's the rest of the team. Winnipeg Jets a little bit more even, right? Like their top six, fine. They've got good depth. Defensively, they leave something to be desired on paper. And then in net, they've got one of the best goalies in the league. So
that's it. Yeah, you nailed it. The goaltending made the difference. But where I was going with this was, I want a sports book to offer a proposition on a serial position. So, like, where will this team finish in the standings? Maybe it's kind of like points totals, but I think it'd be more entertaining to be like, you're more invested in every outcome if it's like a serial position as opposed to a point total. So, anyways, when we open our own sports book, I think that's the direction we should take.
Interesting. Speaking of random standings, before we get to our last team, we went long on headlines today. All right. I won't mention it then. Don't worry about it. Scrolling up, we get to, fourth overall, Toronto Maple Leafs. Right up there with the Rangers, one above Tampa, two above Dallas, and one back of New Jersey. So, there you go. Little Toronto Maple Leafs. What's going on with the Leafs?
Well, Austin Matthews back, and I know that everybody's ready to tug this guy off, and maybe for good reason, because the team's output did change with Matthews not in the lineup. It was decreased, obviously. But this is going to be, I always talk about Mitch Marner, and I stand by that. I think Mitch Marner is the best Maple Leaf. This is a William Nylander appreciation post, because that man's fucking phenomenal. And I don't think he gets a lot of respect in Toronto playing behind Matthews and Marner. But
Tavares, I think Tavares maybe overshines him, right? Outside of in certain circles, like he's the fiddle, yeah.
He absolutely, Tavares is talked about more than this guy. Nylander leads the team in high danger and scoring chances. He's been on an absolute tear. I think he's got like 8 points over his last 5 games, something like that. He basically, he didn't single-handedly carry the team, but he propelled this team offensively in the absence of Matthews. And I think that Nylander is closer to Marner than Matthews is this season. And I know that everybody's going to be angry at me for saying that, but analytically, I think that Nylander's having a better year than Matthews.
I think Nylander had a bit of a coming out party last year in the playoffs. There was a couple goals, specifically Game 7, maybe Game 6 against Tampa Bay. I'm thinking he's sliding across the offensive zone. I think he had like 2 goals or something like that. Maybe had a helper right along the way. But yeah, he is a man possessed right now. Very underrated in this system. And I think it just goes to the, terrible analysis of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the over-analysis, the terrible takes that you see the writers in the Toronto media give out. That's a different story. But, one of them heralded people in Toronto, right? And if he's playing more of an alpha role, like he is, they're going to go far, right? Between the Marners and the Nylanders, and then you have Matthews and Tavares that you're not going to talk about. That's a pretty good problem to have, right? I've seen some posts recently of people going and like digging up the Leafs roster from, I think it was 7 years ago. It doesn't look good. Like, it doesn't look like there's a hockey player on that team, right? It's one of those things I'm like, as a long-time Leafs fan, I appreciate this new group of guys. That's it. Like I said, the next 15 years, if I could just have Marner, Matthews, and Nylander in my life, I would be a very satisfied hockey fan, independent of postseason outcomes, and I'm okay with that. And I'd hate to see, the narrative of like, well, you need the cups to be, and the bandwagon kind of wrecking it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I usually don't get nice things, so.
All right. Well, I don't mean to rob you of your nice things, but I was going a very pointed direction with this. And that is Matthews and Nylander are both free agents at the end of next season, with, I think, Marner and Tavares the year after. Can the Leafs afford to re-sign Nylander and Matthews next year?
Yeah, we went over it last time. I think the core, whatever they make, is just the same. Just the money shifts around. Nylander makes more. Marner makes a little more. Matthew makes a little more, and Tavares makes less, and it just like balances itself out.
Oh man, well, I hope for your happiness' sake you are correct, but I think Nylander's gonna get more than what he's earning now. Matthews is probably getting more than what he's earning now.
But like, he's already at the top. Yeah, but like, I've always thought like, they're like, oh, he's gonna make more. I'm like, he makes like 11 and a half. Connor McDavid makes 12 and a half, right? And like, I'd literally look at him and be like, Connor McDavid averages 150 points this season. You don't do that, right? Like, why do you think you should make like percents more than McDavid, right? Or McKinnon. Like, McKinnon's got the cups, he's got the pedigree. I think he's probably going to get close, and like, it's like the slight upgrades.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. I just like, for your sake, I'm worried about the Leafs being able to. Maybe it's the hometown discount. Maybe that's what it is. But I think to get that discount, you got to win. And if you had to choose right now between Matthews and Nylander in the offseason, who would you choose?
Oh, you have to take Austin Matthews. Like a top-notch, the guy with the scoring touch like him that plays defense that provides other intangibles. You just have to kind of go over the more raw skill. Like the biggest knock on Nylander is he just plays off, right? Less so now, right? He's a little bit more consistent in his game, but there's times where he's out on the ice and he's just not a negative, but he's just like a net no difference while he's out there playing, right? Due to unselfish play, he doesn't get back defensively, he doesn't check all the time, right? So,
all right, let me add a layer to this. Austin Matthews at $14 million or William Nylander at $7.5.
Oh, I'm taking Nylander at 7.5. That guy's definitely exceeding that expectation. Whereas Matthews is probably fair value at 14, but like you're getting way more value with than Nylander.
All right, that's what I was thinking too.
I'm not falling for your dumb. I'm not. I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. So, and then the other piece on the Toronto Maple Leafs, big trade. They traded the first, second, third, maybe a prospect for Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Arcia last night. So, bit of a bolster. Defensively, or depth-wise right now, they're looking at Matthews, Tavares, and Ryan O'Reilly down the center. That ain't bad.
How the fuck did I miss that? Ryan O'Reilly. I was at a dinner party last night, and I was being polite, not looking at my phone. And I woke up and recorded a podcast. How the fuck did I miss 3 picks for Ryan O'Reilly? That is something else.
You didn't know. So I was like, this is an interesting take to go on this like tangent about contracts right now, because I was like, they just traded the first round pick for Ryan O'Reilly yesterday, right? So
that is 100% like they are re-signing their core. They are going to find, like, you don't trade away a first round pick with the intention of trading away any one of your superstars.
Not at all.
Man. Riley, so he must slot into the bottom 6. That's a lot to give up for a bottom 6 forward.
Yeah, but they quite a bit retained. Like, he only has, I think he's a $7.5 million contract. They only took 25%, so his cap hit right now is only $1.8 million.
That's how they made the numbers work, eh?
That's how so they paid a little bit of premium to bring in a pretty much a veteran leader of a Stanley Cup team, right? So the past 3 years, I saw a tweet the Leafs have traded for captain Nick Foligno from the Columbus Blue Jackets, captain of the Seattle Kraken and Mark Giordano, and now captain of the of the St. Louis Blues and Ryan O'Reilly. So leadership, changing the culture, bringing in guys that know how to win and do those other things. That was the deal last night. So
this is going to be interesting because this is either going to be the X factor that leads Toronto to the promised land, or this is going to be the final nail in the coffin of Kyle Dubas's general manager career. If they can't make this trade and lose in the first round again without Kyle Dubas losing his job, they just can't.
Yeah, it's going to look pretty bad. I don't think they're done by any means, right? Like they still have cap space, right? Because O'Reilly costs them very, very little. Asset-wise, they don't have a lot. They still have some prospects that people like, right? So they could get kind of frisky, move some pieces out. But like I was even looking at that. So Kerfoot's done this year, so that's 3.5. I don't know what Muzzin's doing. That's $5 million. And then with Ryan O'Reilly's $2 million, call it 1.82. So that's 7.5. That's $8.5 million in cap space that's freed up. So you could, in theory, upgrade Kerfoot to Ryan O'Reilly at 32 for a couple years. I don't hate that as like a third center on your team.
Ryan Riley, and this is what I don't know. It's the appeal of Toronto in the big market, like the NHL franchise. It feels like Toronto gets players at a discount. Like if, and I wouldn't put it past them because I know Tavares took less money to play in Toronto, but if they could convince Ryan O'Reilly to be like, here, come play in Toronto, we'll give you caps going up. Here's $4 million for the next 4 years. Like that makes this team seemingly unbeatable. If you have a center, like if your centers, if he slots into your third center role, it's just like I just can't get my head around how this team gets beat.
I played that game last night. I was also at a dinner party and was not being rude and looking at my phone. And at some point, I looked down and I was like, as I was leaving, I was like, "Holy shit! Like that is a big time move, right?" We saw the Rangers load up, like I mentioned, with Tarasenko, so they're looking at a little bit more of a scoring presence. And Ryan O'Reilly is definitely coming in for just more depth, grit, leadership. Maybe try and keep the boys from giving it up, right? He's just kind of that extra piece, eats up some minutes when the big guns do need to take a breath. We'll see. And I think it's the piece they've always kind of been looking for, right? Patrick Kane, Timo Myers, maybe provide you a little bit more offense up front, but I don't think the Leafs need more offense up front. Between Nylander, Marner, and Matthews, you get a lot of offense. So if you can add a little bit more scoring from like a depth point of view, all of a sudden your third line becomes a little more dangerous because now it's not David Camp on the third line, it's Ryan O'Reilly. That's a huge upgrade. Is it worth the prospect? Probably. Like, what is Tampa Bay? When was the last time they had a first round pick? Like, remember when they got, like, it was like Cal Foot, and the next year they traded him for nothing? Right? It's not the end of the world. What did the Florida Panthers pay for that defenseman from Montreal last year? Didn't they give up, like, 2 first-round picks?
It was a first and a prospect, I think.
Yeah, so, like, for a bomb. Right? Like, Ryan O'Reilly, at least the player, and, you know, adds an extra piece to the team. So, like, if that's the cost of a first-round pick, like...
Yeah. With the salary retained, and I see this now, I'm like, man, the first is probably for Ryan O'Reilly, and the second is third are for retaining the contract. And it's like, I'm just looking at Cap Friendly now. They've got 3 picks, one of which appears to be a conditional pick that was traded.
Arizona?
So, like, Kyle Dubas, for better or worse, is hanging his hat on this iteration of the team. And they've got potentially a 5th and 6th rounder this year. They've got their first, 4th, 5th, 5th, and 6th and 7th next year. Like, this is like all or nothing for the Leafs. And
well, and I think because of just how, like, his defensive core right now, outstanding. He just pays nothing. Like, between Timmins and Giordano and Sandin and Lindgren, those are 4 NHL defensemen. Not to mention Riley and Brody. Like, he's got, like, they're fine. Jordy Ben is your 7th defenseman. That's not horrendous, and they don't pay a lot, right? So the fact that they have that flexibility on the back end and they have some cheaper pieces, I think gives them the options to go get the forwards, add to that depth. And then you're looking at net. Hey, only 4 active goalies right now, or 3 active goalies in the league have 2 Stanley Cups. That's Mr. Quick, that's Mr. Vasilevsky, and that's Mr. Matt Murray. So, I mean, you got pedigree in between the pipes in the playoffs? Let's fucking go!
it's worth noting that Matt Murray is back on the long-term injured reserve, so he might not make an appearance. He might not reappear until the playoffs.
Yeah, but they have Joseph, the Great Wall.
Well, I like the direction you took that. But the Leafs are going to be a fascinating case study for years to come just to see how it all plays out. Yeah. But like I said, if they don't win this postseason, if they lose in the opening round again, Kyle Dubas will be looking through the line of ads.
I mean, that's a hell of a swing that you just took. Damn right he is. Like, I'm like, Nick Foligno, that's a swing and a miss, right? Like, Giordano, that's okay, right? See where it goes, right? I mean, maybe O'Reilly's a piece of shit. Maybe people don't like him. Remember that time he got really drunk and drove into a Tim Hortons out in, like, Nova Scotia or something like that one off season? No, no one remembers that. All right, cool.
That's a, you know what? That is exactly how we're going to get to my dirty fantasy, because Brian O'Reilly's performance at the Tim Hortons has been akin to our performances in DFS this year, and we are drunk driving our DFS rosters in Tim Hortons on a weekly basis. Maybe a couple weeks off. Maybe that changes the tune. Maybe we come in a little fresher. But I got to say, I don't feel comfortable with my lineup the way it is tonight. So I hope you got some better advice.
Yeah, cool. So going back from 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, whatever it was, I got 18th. I did not make money. I missed out on getting my return by 2 points. So that's actually not horrendous compared to what I did. My mistake was thinking that for some reason the Winnipeg Jets could score against the formidable, the unstoppable defense of the Philadelphia Flyers. What a stupid game. I absolutely hated that. I did do all right. John Klingberg, I think he was like my cheapest guy. He had 24 points, and then Capo Kakinen, goalie for the Sharks. Just pick random goalies. Don't ever spend money on goalies. That's the rule of FanDuel. So that was my abysmal performance. But like Grant alluded to, I got a banger of a lineup tonight.
Running through last week.
Oh, no. Apparently one of my guys is hurt. Oh, no. What happened?
Connor McDavid was the only noteworthy performance I had, 43.4 points. Trevor Zegras, 16.8. Jake Middleton, 12.8. And Teddy Bluger, who was dirt cheap at 6.4, kind of scratched the surface for me. Other than that, Blake Wheeler, Kyle Connor, both fucked me. Like you, we were both on the Winnipeg Jets, and that was really my undoing. I had 107. I finished a few points out. What was this? 26 points out. So if those guys would have just not pooped themselves, I probably would have been all right. But we don't play in the past. We live in the here and now. Who do you got tonight?
Who do I got tonight? So I went to the bottom of the well. I believe Denalia or something like that is the goaltender that's currently starting for the Vancouver Canucks. And I was like, man, that guy sounds like he's worth like $5. That's great. No, he's worth like $8,000. So he's played a couple games for the Canucks. I went with Carter Hart instead. $7,300. Flyers versus Canucks. Canucks suck. Anything can happen. So we'll start at the back end. Up front, I've got Nick Suzuki. He's playing the Leafs tonight. Like I said, for some reason, Montreal, they're just going to beat the Leafs. They're going to be 4-0 against the Leafs. Have kind of a crappy season. I can't explain it. Calder Trophy favorite, Matty Bernier, from the Seattle Kraken, $5,900. Those are my two centers. I got Brock Besser, because I can't stay away from lovable Vancouver, $6,500. Arteri Panarin, $7,700. Going up against Calgary tonight, we might see some fireworks. On the back end, I've got Noah Hannafin, $57, and Matt Benning at $4,200. Chris Kreider is in the utility at $72, which then leaves me with some decisions to make. I don't know who I would like as my other utility player. I think I had something cheap. Quinn Byfield for the Kings. Apparently he's their number one center. They're playing Arizona. Probably worth something, $3,700, but because I had to get rid of Elias Lindholm because apparently he's not playing right now. And that's where the Matt Bernier came from. I had some extra money, so I think I'm going to try and upgrade from Quinn Byfield to Tyler Perduzzi. $3,300.
All right. Well, I was looking long and hard at Panarin, but I was like, I ended up going in a different direction. I will just start at the beginning. So I always talk about this, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Matthews on Saturday night, for some reason, he just does it for me. I know he's the most expensive guy. I know he's going to be heavy to the roster, but I think he's worth it. I have paired him up at center with Michael Pezzetta from the Montreal Canadiens. Michael Pezzetta is a guy, plays on fourth line. He's $3,200. He's got points in 2 of his last 3. Plays with some truculence, and every time I tune in, my eyes are always drawn to Michael Pezzetta. I'm like, for a guy who he just plays with truculence, he's the exact type of player that you want.
I love that. When a guy steals your attention in a hockey game, that is one of the most like electric things you can see, right? Like you're sitting there watching, and like someone gets your attention, your ire, and you're like, that guy's impressive, right?
He is impressive. So And like you were saying, for some reason the Habs just have the Leafs. I don't know if it's going to be tonight. Anyways, he's my other centerman. Maybe I'll walk this back a little bit. I went with the Leaf stack. I paired Matthews with Marner and Brody. Brody's only 3,700. It didn't make any sense to me. It was one of those. Yeah. He's cheaper than Sandin, and to me, Brody has more fantasy value, in my opinion, than Sandin.
In my mind, though, like TJ Brody's job is just to cover up for Morgan Riley's defensive deficiencies. So, like, he has a lot on his plate doing everything else because Riley's just a fucking loose cannon out there, and he's like, I don't even fucking believe in defense, boys. Like, skating backwards? Not today. So, TJ Brody's had, like, a very tough go at it the last couple of years, so.
All right, well, that's not enough to talk me out of it. I'm sticking with Brody. Okay. They are complemented, I hate to say this, with a pseudo Arizona Coyotes stack. I've got Karel Vejmelka in between the net. He's only 6,900. Nice. And Clayton Keller, first line, top scorer, plays power play. He's 6,900 too. I don't know. The stars just seem to align. Two nice salaries like that. Why wouldn't you? The rest of the spots are filled by Zach Bogosian. I went to this well last time. Maybe he's like a block, a shot. I know that he's not going to light the world on fire, but for $3,600, you know I like to cut corners on defense. That leaves me with two utility spots. Everybody's talking about Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier in San Jose, and Thomas Hurl's feelings must be hurt because he has a lot to offer, and somebody's feeding Timo Meier the puck. Thomas Hurl, 6,600, and I've wrapped it up with Jaden Schwartz from the Seattle Kraken hosting the Detroit Red Wings. Schwartz is 5,600. Kraken are good on home ice. They're coming off a big offensive performance. I expect them to carry that momentum against the Detroit Red Wings, who just struggle away from home. So that's it.
Solid, yeah. And like at this point, if you're not throwing a random Seattle Kraken when they have a game in your FanDuel lineup, you're doing yourself a disservice because like they've struck gold somehow, scoring goals. I'm not sure how. It's kind of that like constant offensive pressure that they kind of exert. So you're bound to get something.
I agree. For some reason, Seattle has just, like I said, I always talk about how these metrics just naturally balance themselves out. Seattle was better than they showed last year, and they're paying for last year's bad performance with this year's metrics because they're above where they should be, but the universe has a funny way of balancing itself all out.
Sweet. There you go. So that is our FanDuel lineups. But I would be remiss. I know we're going a little long today. Bear with us, folks. It's been a hot second. We got to make fun of NHL.com and their fantasy picks. We do that. That's like my favorite part of Saturday morning. Last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they said, hey guys, you want a goal? You got to look to the international man of mystery, Owen Power. See how many goals the Buffalo Sabres defenseman had? Yeah, right. 0. Oh boy, that was a good pick. How about Cam Fowler with the assist? Hey, some defenseman's going to get to. It's probably going to be John Klingberg, so hopefully you picked him, not Cam Fowler. Because Cam Fowler had 0. That's too bad. Nate Schmidt, though, Winnipeg Jets. Man, power play points, they come so easy. Unless you get shut out by the Flyers. And finally, shots on goal, Nick Nurse, he had 3. So, maybe? He got 0.5 out of 4, NHL.com.
Good for you.
Good for you. Again, 2 weeks ago, they were fine. They were like, oh, you want a goal? Connor David, right? Like, you want shots on goal? Alexander Ovechkin. I'm like, these are actually good picks. And then next week, they're like, shots on goal. Noah Dobson. That's the one. Just like today, they said, you want a goal? Anthony Cicerelli is the man, the only guy that scores for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's where you should be focusing. Point. You want just a single point? In the entire league, who would you suggest? Would it be Casey Middlestat for the Buffalo Sabres? Because NHL.com would. But power play point. Let's be serious here. We talk who scores a lot in Seattle. Obviously, Robbie Fabry. So power play points. Boom. Easy pick right there. Robert Fabry. Oh, sorry, Robbie Fabry. I don't want to be too formal. And then finally, shots on goal. Somebody's got to shoot the puck in Vancouver, I guess. So Anthony Bellevue. It's the one. So
I swear to God, this website is just trying to bring like shine a light on the league's most obscure players. Like this just makes no sense to me.
Well, like I could understand if it was a season-long contest and they want to offer you advice and highlight players, and they can't use the same player more than once. But like, since I've been keeping track, the same names keep up. Like Noah Dobson, for some reason, is gonna have shots on goal next week. That's gonna be thick. And I'm like,
oh, God bless you, NHL. Whatever it is you're trying to do, you're failing miserably at it.
there's that expression in NHL.com that Grant always tells me. It says, "Keep it simple, stupid." Makes me cry every time, but it does. Just keep it simple. Like, don't overthink things. Just like clean it up. It's not that bad.
You've got guys like Sidney Crosby, Jason Robertson, Austin Matthews, anybody from the Leafs basically, Artemi Panarin, Elias Pettersson. These are just players that I'm thinking of scrolling up and down the schedule. What the fuck are you doing with the Casey Middlesteads, the Robbie Fabbris, no offense guys, and whoever that last guy was, Anthony Beliveau? Get the fuck out of here with that.
They don't do anything. I mean, like, again, unless like this is for DraftKings, and we found that like, these are the biggest anomalies. You get the most bang for your buck. Cool, great. Now, if you read the write-up, they're just like, oh, they had 5 goals last year, so they didn't try it. He's got no goals this year, so he's bound for it. All right, cool.
But best of luck to you.
Yeah, from one crappy website's advice on gambling or fantasy to another crappy podcast's advice on gambling. There you go. There's a segue for you. My dirty fantasy. We mentioned before, Grant had a pretty good season. I'm having a good season. Grant's having a great season. So, it destroys my self-esteem every time I think about how much Grant's beating me in this contest. Although, I think we are pretty even. Like, what, season 6? I think we both owe each other a toboggan ride on the other. I think I owe you a George Costanza-like calendar, and I get to slap you in the face with a foot-long sub. I think, like, if we did those things, we'd probably be, like, level in our lives.
I was going to say, and like anything, we're probably not breaking any mathematical rules here. Like, if you stretch out the life of the podcast, especially the last 4 or 5 years, I would say we're probably pretty close. Yeah. And probably, like, I would even hazard a guess, Price is Right rules, we're probably within, like, $100 of each other, at least.
Oh, yeah, because, like, last year, you started, like, you might have had a negative season, and I was up, like, $700 end of the year, and then, like, the year before that, you were up $800, and I was, like, minus.
Yeah.
Right, like, you go back, and I'm like, I remember one time I hit, like, back-to-back, like, 7 plus 700 parlays or something one year to, like...
Towards the end of the year.
Yeah. And it was just, like, just to, like, I still lost you, but it was so close at the end, and I was like, there you go, alright, so, I'm not against the wall, so I'm not taking that many swings, but I got 3 plays for today. How about yourself?
I got 4, but you know what the 4th one is.
Okay, I'll lead off then, and you can just kind of tie a nice bow on the end. I'm going to go... I think we're seeing some shootouts tonight. It's been a hot second. I think we're seeing some, at least, maybe not shootouts specifically, but overtimes. And Hockey Night in Canada just screams overtime. If there was a script that they give out at the start of the season, they definitely love a little bit more drama on a Saturday night. So I'm going to take my first pick with Vancouver, Philadelphia. There's 2 miserable franchises that don't look like they want to play hockey anymore. At plus 400, I will take an overtime with the Canucks and the Flyers. $25.
I like that play. Sometimes those shitty teams just deserve each other, and the Vancouver Canucks and Philadelphia Flyers are on the shit end of the spectrum, and they 100% deserve each other. I also stopped myself from betting 3 shootouts. Instead, I went in a different direction. Nevertheless, I'll open with my overtime pick, and that is Arizona versus the Los Angeles Kings. LA skating on the second night of a back-to-back. Arizona's been to overtime in 3 of their past 4 games, plus 350, which is a tantalizing number. I just couldn't pass it up. $30 to win 105.
All right, cool. So specifically because I know people that are going to this game tonight, and I feel like I don't know, little OT action. Flames have been struggling. Why not go to overtime with the Rangers? So I like Flames Rangers overtime. Another $25, and I believe that was also plus. Maybe it was plus 300. So bet 25, get back 100. So I don't like those. So that's my 2 overtime plays tonight. I like Calgary and Vancouver.
All right, I like it. I'm going with a home plus money home underdog with my second pick. Pittsburgh Penguins hosting the New Jersey Devils plus 110, $30 to win 33. Of note, the Pittsburgh Penguins offense is absolutely killing it right now. You wouldn't know from their output because they've kind of struggled, but they've hit 19 or more high danger chances in 3 of their past 6. They've hit double digits in 3 of 4. We saw their output creep up last time. I think that they're on this upward trend because their production has increased, but output has actually decreased, last game notwithstanding. So they're due for they're natural progression candidates. Plus 110 against the Devils. I just couldn't rationalize, especially on home ice. Pittsburgh, I hope, comes out on top.
I like that, especially since I feel like the Devils definitely are inflated by that 19-game win streak they had this year, and it's not the level of hockey that they're playing. Plus Jack Hughes is on this. It's not bad. That's a very, very nice find there. For myself, I've been struggling a little bit with my picks because I'm finding that I'm kind of a coward with gambling. Specifically on this podcast, just giving advice with the Super Bowl. I just was so scared of the Eagles winning, even though it doesn't affect my life whatsoever. But I just didn't want to. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. So I'm going to do another cowardly thing. I think got me in trouble last bowl where I just picked a bunch of favorites. Saw what happened. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Calgary Flames it and just try and do the exact same thing, expect different results. So, final one, I've got a 3-team parlay. I don't like the Coyotes to win 2 games in a row. So the fact that they just beat the Lightning, I kind of feel like the Kings probably going to get one. So I'm going to take the Kings. I'm going to take the Bruins at home against the Islanders. At this point, it's almost easy money just thinking that the Bruins are going to win. And as well as I will take the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm putting money on the Leafs, everyone. The apocalypse is near because I don't think I've ever done that before. So I do want to get a little bit on the action of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's 3-team parlay plus 149, $50, payout 125.
Well, I hope it pays off for you. It is a little unusual. I was going to say this already on the podcast, and I'm glad I didn't. I totally expected you to emotionally hedge with the Maple Leafs tonight. You talk about how the Caps have their number, but obviously that spell will eventually come to an end. For your sake, I hope it is tonight. I, with my last pick, have flip-flopped on this one. I couldn't decide. At one point, I had the Columbus Blue Jackets in there. But then I was like, I talked myself out of it. Maybe that will be my fatal mistake for the night. I went with another plus money home underdog. Vegas Golden Knights hosting the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay has overachieved substantially relative to their metrics. They've actually been outplayed in 4 of their last 7 games. And other than losing to the Coyotes last time out, they've actually been playing. The outcomes have gone their way. So I just feel like they've exhausted their puck luck. Vegas, not an easy place to play. I know that they have injuries, but at plus 104, I was like, I'm just going to take Vegas outright. Plus 104, $30 to win 31.20. If you parlay all 3 picks, $10 to win 182.78. I will say this. I strongly considered playing all 3 games as overtime picks, and I might still get there. There's lots of time before puck drop. I'm thinking two of these 3 games go to overtime. I'm just not confident on which ones. Anyways, the picks are what they are. Yeah. See how it goes.
Just for myself, I really like that Penguins pick. Oh boy, that's a good one. I might make it in the pocket. And then just looking at the lines, because I instantly jumped to overtime, I overlooked the fact that the Rangers are underdogs against the Flames tonight. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel very good about my overtime pick now. If for some reason the Lions think that the Flames stand a chance in this game, that makes me feel even more confident in that pick. But I don't know. The Rangers straight up for some plus money. They're playing good hockey. The Flames aren't. Maybe that's a little parlay that gets thrown in there for plus 360. Look at that extra advice. No, you can't take that one. I'm gonna take that away from everyone. It's gone.
I thought so when you started your Flames Rangers breakdown. I thought you were going Rangers money line
I didn't even
straight.
look. I just assumed they were favorites, or like they were the favorites. So like I didn't even consider that.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't take it now, but like maybe in real life, it's actually kind of nice to be bad at like be worse at gambling on the podcast and be better in real life because you know what the podcast pays me.
This is the Mick playing 3D chess, and we're all playing checkers.
Yeah, versus in
He's
real
just
life.
out here
I win
tempting
that,
the universe, and then hustling on the side. Good for you, man.
yeah, I win money and then I buy nice things. Like I got a Serena Williams rookie card.
Hmm.
Don't know why I bought that, but
Well, you're not wrong for doing it. And Serena Williams, I will say, is probably one of the finest women on the planet, but probably not as fine as our babe of the week this week. And this is where we tie it all together because this is where the official comes from. I was, in my search for ice women, came across the original Sammy. Exactly how you think it is. TheOriginalSammy, the original Sammy, all is one words. At one point, it appears that she was a Colorado Avalanche ice girl. However, she is now apparently an American Hockey League official. She apparently looks like a firefighter. At least she's wearing firefighter's gear. She works out. This lady does it all. The original Sammy, you must be an official here because you have officially given me a boner. You are our babe of the week, schwing.
she's a bit of a beauty, isn't she? It's not fair though. Like some of her pictures, she's like hanging out with her friends, and the next one, like they're in a gym. So if you always hang out in a gym, of course you're gonna be sexy. That's cheating.
But I respectfully would let her put me in any box she wanted me to because this woman is an absolute stunner.
There you go. So there we go. So a little bit long. We have to do a recap of our things. It's been a while. There's a big Leafs trade that Grant didn't even know about.
Yeah, it's been a long few weeks. It's kind of there's a lot going on. Pitchers catchers reported, Super Bowl,
Yeah.
college basketball. This is where my interest starts to get peaked, even though I know they've been playing for a few months. But March Madness around the corner. I know that this was a glass half empty opening, but I am excited about the world of sports over the coming weeks. Spring training, March Madness, NHL playoffs, like
I find it's good to give myself a break, especially around like that Super Bowl. Like take a step back from like hockey. The Leafs had a bye week, so they didn't have any games. So I was just like, no, other than like maybe throw a game on while I'm like doing a workout one day or something. Like take a step back and then get back into it, and then you start getting like the fire built a little bit, right? You get a little bit more excited. I did the same thing with like basketball. I stepped away from basketball for a couple of weeks, and I was like, no, I just need like nothing in my life, right? Because it's every day. It's constant. It's not just the football where it's one day a week, right?
yeah, to validate that thought, we talked about the Vancouver Canucks for like 5 minutes today. We haven't talked about the Vancouver Canucks for 5 minutes this year.
Again, they traded their captain. Or Miller's a captain. They traded a guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying like you're right. We both had something to say, and maybe taking a step back, maybe it worked because it feels like trade deadline, postseason push, and then all of a sudden, it's like the hockey season's over.
That's it. So I know we were lamenting that we have to go 3 months without hockey, but not yet. There's still lots of action. But again, until we get too long in the tooth here, just wrap it up and come back next week. Keep kicking ass. So with that, I think we say party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.